Alright, so I received some footage, doing some coaching here. Hand one, match one. This is a shootout. Okay, ace king versus a limp. Obviously, we're going to ISO. I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky about the sizing and say I'd go something more like 70-75. Just to get a little bit more value against a guy that's probably not great at poker if he's open limping the first button. So on ace jack jack, what do we think about villain's range? What does it look like? What hands? I mean, are we going to be exploitative or balanced here? And what hands, if we're going to be exploitive, are we value targeting? That's something that you ought to look at. Like, what hands actually do you expect? I'm going to pause that. What hands are you expecting that villain's going to have in his range that are going to call you? And what bet size are you going to be best able to utilize and get called by the most second best hands? So, what's his range look like? And do we want to be balanced or do we want to value target? And can we maybe accomplish both? Okay, so I'm going to be betting probably 100% of my air in this spot. And I want to use about a half pot sizing to do that with. So unless my specific read says otherwise, and it'd have to be a pretty specific read, I'm going to err on the side of just using that half pot bet with ace king also. Now, what I'm thinking here is we want to value target draws, like any two diamonds that Limpton called, and he may have small pocket pairs, pocket twos, pocket threes, pocket fours, which obviously now would be a set, but we didn't know that on the flop. So we're value targeting like twos through fours, maybe, draws, obviously, and kind of erring on the side of, in light of any real reason to do anything else, we may as well kind of be a little bit of balanced, a little bit balanced. Probably he's limp folding his total trash. He's going to open raise. We can assume his good hands. So there's a lot of uncertainty about his range, but it's probably mediocre stuff, which might include a lot of suited hands and could include some tiny pairs. So since we really don't know a lot about his range, I want to really put the main emphasis on the actual hand here, the hand strength, and the mistakes that I'm going to guess that this player is likely to make the most. And I think this villain has shown himself to probably be a little bit more apt to making calling mistakes. So let's give him a chance to make some calling mistakes and go ahead and use like just a half size betting. We may as well be balanced with the sizing, so if there's no strong reason not to be, let's definitely plan on taking the line of bet, bet, bet. And I think we're going to bet call on the flop if he raises. We're going to probably bet fold the turn because he's less likely to be check raising a draw on the turn, I would say. And if we bet flop and get called, bet turn and get called, the river, I'm going to bet pretty much any river card here. And depending on the river card, though, I may call a raise and I may fold to a raise, but definitely betting flop, betting turn, and planning on calling a raise on the flop, folding to a raise if it comes on the turn, and just depending on how exactly the hand plays out, it's hard to say what we're going to do. Bet and fold or bet and call, but yeah, it really does depend on the run out as to whether we're going to bet and call or bet and fold. If we bet flop, get called, bet turn, get called, and bet river. The only thing that's going to stop me from betting the river is going to be like a Broadway diamond, like a queen of diamonds. I'm not going to bet. Then I'm going to check, hope it goes to showdown, but probably check and fold. But yeah, so that's kind of what I think about this hand so far. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I like the bet, I like the sizing. And he folds, and that's fine. He just didn't have anything to continue with, and there's no problem with that. Opening 10-6 offsuit, super standard. And folding to a 3-bet seems like the only thing we can do. That seems fine. We're going to be calling here for sure. And yeah, we're just going to have to check and fold this flop. I think that's pretty clear. Okay, now, let's pause the video. When he checks back this flop, okay, so one of two things is happening here. He realizes this is a good flop for him to c-bet, and he doesn't want to turn a hand with showdown value into a bluff, so he's checking back his showdown value. The other thing he could be doing is he could have like no real clue what he should be doing, and not really understand that this is really a good flop for him to continuation bet his air on, and he's checking back his air. We've got a very good opportunity to figure out exactly which one of those things is going on, and it's going to be a plus EV maneuver even in a vacuum. So when he checks back air, leading is the right idea, and when he checks back showdown value, leading is the right idea. If he's checking back like a 6 here, we don't want to allow him to get that to showdown. We want to exploit his check back range being weak. If he is checking back something like just, I don't know, king high, then we also don't want him to get that to showdown, and we don't want to induce a bluff that we can't call, so we should also be bombing. So if I remember this hand correctly, this is the first thing I would say is a mistake. This has to be a bet. I would go at least 80. I'd go probably exactly 80. I think that's going to tell us plenty. Now, if villain adjusts by putting some slow plays, or at least some aces, ace X's in his check back range on a board like this, then we're going to have to adjust. But I think it's super unlikely that he's just going to start off doing that, and he may never do that. Most players will never wise up to this, so this is a really big deal. You ought to add this to your repertoire. If it turns out that we find out he is checking back a lot of showdown value, then what we're going to do to exploit that is going to be to like really bomb the turns that he checks back the flop on, and we're going to really bomb the river. So if it turns out he's checking back his pairs of 6s, his pairs of 3s, and his king highs, then we want to go like maybe 100 on this turn, and he can almost never call, or maybe even 80 on the turn. He's going to fold some, call some, and then we're going to go like a little bit of an overbet on the river, and it's going to be just really hard for him to call down. So we're going to we're really just going to bomb the turn and then overbet the river against players that like to check back showdown value and are very imbalanced and playing face up in that way. Now, if it turns out that he is doing this with air, it turns out that he's checking back air, and if he just folds, like especially if he folds quickly when we bomb the turn, then we know that he likely checked back air if he didn't even have to think about it and he didn't call. So our strategy is going to be a little bit different. Still not bad to just bomb against his air, but it may end up then being better to check raise when he's checking back his air. So if it turns out that he's checking back showdown value, let's bomb the turn and overbet the river. If it turns out that he is checking back his air, then let's maybe go for a check raise on the flop. Or I'm sorry, check raise on the turn, and that should get the job done. So that's this is, I think, though, the spot where we've just got the most simple bet to find out. Again, it's going to be plus EV in a vacuum, and it's going to benefit our overall strategy. So that just seems like the green light to me. So I think this is a mistake. Check folding here. I would say, we still have ace X in our range. We still have flush and straight draws. So that definitely just bomb this turn and still plan to barrel a lot of rivers. I mean, a lot of times he's just going to fold here if we bet, I think, especially if we bet like 80. But we could just bet 80 and plan on bombing a lot of rivers, like all clubs, all broadways, and we're going to probably check and call if we hit a jack. That would be my plan, is 80 on the turn, check, call a jack, bomb all broadways, bomb all clubs, and if we hit a 7, it's real close. Probably check fold, but planning and hoping that it goes check, check a lot. It likely will. If we bet 80 on the turn, the river's a 7, and we check, he probably checks back a 6 or a 3 and loses, and he probably bets an ace if he's got it, and probably bets a 10 if he's got it. The problem is only going to be that we allow him then to bluff with his busted flush draws, but I think that's tempered a little bit by the fact that he did not take this perfect c-bet bluffing opportunity. So I think I'm going to kind of at least weight his range on the river away from bluffs, which makes me inclined to check and fold the 7s. But when we check the 7, we are planning on winning. a pretty good amount of the time when he just checks back a 3 or checks back a 6 or a pair of 5s or something like that. So yeah, that's my analysis here. But basically, betting is greater than check raising, is greater than check folding, is greater than check calling. Very simple open here. When he leads tiny, I think this is a raise. Let's test this bet out. Let's do, again, we have a plus EV opportunity to gain information that's going to benefit us for the rest of the entire match. And as played on the turn, when he leads tiny again, I think we want to bomb this turn. I'm going to pause here. The bet sizing, I think that was a bet sizing mistake. And there's a lot of reasons that I think that was a sizing mistake. Okay, so when he bets small on the flop, we're getting a good price. We can just take the price. I think that's fine. I don't think it would be a problem to raise. And in fact, I think it's fine to take the price. I'm inclined to just raise on the flop. And again, I want to do that because I want to figure out what these bets mean as soon as I can in the match so that I can use that information for as long as I possibly can. The sooner you start getting good reads on your opponent, the higher EV you're going to have in the game and the entire overall match. So when we have opportunities to figure out what our opponent's doing earlier, let's do it earlier rather than later. That applies to earlier in the hand, but it applies even more to earlier in the match. So I want to know what these leads mean. We have a perfectly good hand to do that with, to find out. If he bets 20 and we make a pot size raise and he folds, then we know he's making like blocking bets and he's got a weak range when he leads. And if we make a pretty good sized bet, maybe not necessarily full pot, something like 2/3 pot total. If we do that and then he calls, then he's likely weak leading with his draws. And if he bets and this tiny bet on the flop and we raise the flop big and he jams, then we know that he's doing these weak little donk bets, most likely with his nutted value hands. It's kind of like an induction, he's trying to induce us to spaz. And that would be unfortunate given that we do have a lot of equity, but that's really the only problem that we could run into, and I think it's the least likely of all. It's very unlikely. So when he does this small bet after we just call, and he does a small bet here on the turn, okay, when we're on the turn, forget this 10. So we go 10-8, he bets, we raise, or no, I'm sorry, he bets, we call, and the turn is a 7. Okay, now when he makes this tiny bet again, we have to pounce on this. I think this is a big, not a big mistake. It's not terrible to just take the price and try to hit your draw. It can't be terrible. You've got the odds to do it. There's no doubt about it. But let's just see, it's definitely a plus EV call. It's not a mistake in that sense. But can we do something better? And I think we can. I think we want to raise. I'm glad to see that you did raise. I think the sizing is bad. Back to that. Here's why. The reason that the sizing that you used, I think, is a little small. I mean, I get it. Like, you went, I think, 80. I believe it was 80. So you went 80. Okay, I get it. You're trying to give yourself a good price on a semi-bluff, knowing that you've got equity if you're called. Totally understand. But I'm going to size to like 140 because I don't want to keep his range intact. I want to get rid of as much of it as I can. I want to fold his small pairs out. I want to fold everything out. We're not probably going to fold his 10x out, but I don't even think he's got 10x in his range. And if he does, it's definitely a small part of his range, and we have to weight against that. So if we fold everything but his 10x out, that's fantastic. And it also puts more money in the pot. I mean, this isn't the primary reason, but it does get value for the times that we do bink the river after he calls. So let's get heavy. Basically, let's get heavy on the bluff portion of our semi-bluff here and really just bomb this because we're not going to have good implied odds. And we don't want to leave hands like 8x and like king of spades, x of spades. We don't want to leave the weak part of his range in. We want to fold out as much stuff as we want because we're not going to be able to take advantage of his weak range. That's the big point here. We're not going to be able to take advantage of his weak range on the river because all of our improvement cards are the scare cards. So like if we plan to bomb a ton of rivers, um, you know, that's one thing. That's a good argument for making a smaller raise when he leads, making a smaller raise to keep some of his trashier stuff in, because we plan on bombing a ton of rivers and we're gonna make it sometime. That makes some sense. But here it really doesn't make a lot of sense to have that plan, because we can't we can't really bomb rivers, because the same cards that we're going to want to bomb as scare card bluffs are going to be mostly cards that actually hit us, like the queen, and all of the ways that we can, you know, improve are just going to be scary. So the other part of that is, um, we really we don't have a lot of implied odds. So if we leave his range, like his eights in and his sevens in, and even his draws in, what happens when we hit like a queen? Are we really going to feel comfortable betting that? I mean, I'm not. After he bets small and then calls our raise on the turn, I'm not really thrilled about the queen, so I'm going to check it back. I can't take advantage of that. And like if we have 7, 8, 9, 10, if the jack peels, it's going to be pretty hard for us to get value there. We just don't have the implied odds, right? And if, you know, we do manage to pick up like a spade or something that might be worth bluffing, we can't even be sure that he's not going to lead into us, and kind of, you know, tie our hands or handcuff us and make it hard for us to really bluff effectively. So thinking about what cards are your improvement cards and thinking, am I going to have a lot of implied odds? And if you're going to have a lot of implied odds, then it could make sense to just even call. Or it could make sense to make a bet, you know, that's going to keep some of the stuff in. But if we're not going to have a lot of implied odds, then we want to maximize our fold equity with our draws. And so I think that's, you know, the way you need to think about it. I think that's just kind of a better way to think about it. Also, if the scare cards that we could choose to bluff are going to have like a lot of, they're going to be intertwined and mingled, and we're going to, like with our actual outs. So if, you know, like if we have a straight draw and there's a flush draw on the board, very different situation than like having this very straighty board and actually having a straight draw, right? So if we had a flush draw on this board, I would think very differently about the situation. But our improvement cards are just going to be very hard for us to get value, and there's not going to be a lot of scare cards for us to take advantage of him still having a weak range. So again, let's make a bigger bet on the turn. I'm just trying to drive it home. I hope I'm not beating that, you know, beating you senseless with that. Okay, so here he leads, and this is crazy, and you commented on this lead. So let's look at this lead. This does not make sense, and you identified it. You said, what is he doing? Or you didn't understand, this didn't make sense to you. You said something like, this is a bad card for him to lead. Or you asked, isn't this a bad card for him to lead? And the answer is yes, this is a crazy card for him to lead. You need to go with this read. What is he do? What is his story? Okay, his story is what? That he donk bet tiny with top pair on a semi-textured board. And then when he got action, and the turn brings in a flush draw and 3 to a straight, he still has top pair, and he still makes a small bet. That's baloney, right? No way. And if he does that, like as some sort of like weird leveling button clicky type thing, it's okay. It's okay for you to lose money in this spot when it works out for him, because it's not going to work out for him so much. He's going to lose so much money playing the hand this way, that if you lose a big pot when it actually does happen to work out for him, it's not a big deal. You know, you're going to win a lot more pots and a lot more money, I should say. You're going to get more value from him misplaying his hand than you're going to lose by assuming that he played his hand correctly. That's a key concept. If you don't understand that or haven't thought about that, think about that. That's a big deal. In these spots where you're like, well, yeah, but he could be a button-clicking fish. I don't know that he's doing something that makes sense. This could be a 10. Maybe he's just bad and this is a 10. It's okay for you to lose a big pot. The great once in a while he totally plays his hand awful, and it actually works out for him, because of all the times, sort of by definition, that it's not going to work out for him when he plays his hand badly, when he's giving you a great price, when he's just creating terrible ranges and taking bad lines is going to be so much value for you that it's not going to be the end of the world if you lose the occasional big pot when all of the stars align just perfectly for him to get super lucky and actually just accidentally make what ends up being a good play in hindsight, but isn't actually a good play. Hopefully that makes sense. So when he bets this river card, you have no showdown value. You have no reason to believe that he has a 10, and probably a lot of reason to believe he does not have a 10. So what's the most likely thing here? The most likely things, I'll say, and it doesn't really matter which it is, he's either got a busted draw, and he now sees this 10, and for whatever reason feels like it's going to be a scare card. Like maybe if you have aces, or I don't know, he's a fish, so he just looks at it, he's like, ooh, a 10, I missed my draws, I'm going to bluff, and that's a good card because it's going to scare him into folding a lot, because if he's got two pair or something like that, it's going to be hard for him to call. Who knows? But the point is that he's going to see that as a card. He might see that as a card that would allow him to bluff more effectively, and it should not. So let's not let it, right? And the other thing is, so he's either, I think the most likely things are, he's either just betting this because he missed his draw and he doesn't want to check and get bet at, and he just wants to lead and take the pot down. Maybe he looks at the 10 as a scare card. Okay, that's one. The other, and I think maybe just as likely, and it should be easy enough to find out as the match progresses, but the other thing that I think it's pretty likely he's doing here is he's got some kind of like pair of eights, or like probably like a pair of eights, and he was making a small bet on the flop, basically as a blocking bet or a pro bet for information, trying to, quote, find out where he's at. He did it again on the turn, but you gave him such a good price he felt compelled to take the pot odds, and now when this 10 comes off, he doesn't want to check and call. So he doesn't want to check and call, he doesn't want to check and fold, and he doesn't know what else to do, so he bets. So he's making a very common play that you'll see come out of fish. He's doing what I call an accidental range merge. He is taking a line that really ought to be pretty polarizing, bluff, or some kind of strangely played trap nutted value hand, but bluff heavy, and he's actually doing like a range merge, which if he was range merging on purpose, it would be maybe an okay bet because he's expecting you to bluff against him and he's going to call, or he's expecting you to call him with, like, make a hero call against him, and maybe he's got something like ace 8, but I want to raise against both of those hands. I want to raise against his busted draws because he could have busted draws that are better than my busted draw, and I can't really call. And I want to raise against his 8s. I want to raise against his 7s. If he was doing something goofy with like an, I don't know, like a ace X of, or like an ace 7 of like clubs maybe, he bet that, or yeah, even like a 7-9. He maybe had like a 7-9 on the flop, and he led, and then he led again on the turn, and he raised, and he felt like he was getting the right price. Now he knows he can't win a showdown, so he's betting. I mean, almost his entire range that makes any kind of sense, I want to raise against. So I think that was your initial instinct, and I think you kind of thought, man, I don't want to put a whole bunch of money on the line and really gamble on a bluff, but buddy, you're gambling. I mean, we want to have the best of it, but you have to. I've seen in your play, I've watched all of this, I've watched your entire video, and one central theme that I'm seeing here is you seem to have good instincts, but you're afraid to go with them. Don't be. Go with your reads. If they're not good, if they're not correct, and your goal, you said, is to eventually play professionally. If your reads are not correct, you need to find that out, and you need to adjust them, and that's how you're going to get better at hand reading and going with your gut. And if you just find that you just don't have the ability, or your reads are way off and they're not getting better, I mean, how better you find out early, right? Because today's poker game is so competitive that you're going to have to be super, super good with your reads, and you're going to have to go with them, and you're going to have to be right more than you're wrong, or you're not going to make it. So it's really, that's going to give you the best chance of making it, and it's probably going to give you the best chance of just improving a little bit also. So don't be afraid to go with your read here. That's my biggest takeaway. We've talked a little bit already about some little strategic things. None of it matters that much compared to this thing. Go with your reads. You have to. Right here, your read was this dude's full of it. I agree. I think he's full of it, or he's got some kind of a 7, like a 7-9, or like some kind of 8x that thought he was getting too good of a price. Maybe like, an 8x with 2 spades even. Who knows? Some kind of combo draw on the turn that now he's turning into a bluff. Raise this dude right here and raise him big. Like, he's betting 140 into 280 is going to be like 4. Well, okay, there's a pot feature, so there's 420. Yeah, I would go like 500 total. Just whatever you can. Yeah, maybe even like 5 and a bit. Like, let's get this clown to fold his 8 for sure. Let's make sure he never calls with an 8. Maybe 600. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you're not going to get pot logged, right? You can't get stuck to this pot because, I mean, you have no chance of winning at showdown if he comes over the top. So just find the sweet spot. Try to think of what the sweet spot is. And my guess is it might be somewhere around like 560, something like that. Just under 600 might be good because it might make him even. You'll have like the overall big bet sizing, which gives him bad odds, but it'll be just shy of 600, and maybe that could like kind of talk him into leveling himself into thinking like, well, he's going just shy of 600, so maybe he's looking for a call here. You don't want to bet quite 600. I've done that to myself, and I've seen people do it against me. But that's very much about the player pool. But you get the idea. Raise here. Go with your gut. Those are the 2 big takeaways. Really think about what his... I mean, don't just think like he's got a weak range when he's donking. What does it mean? Why does he have a weak range? How is he constructing that weak range? How is he likely to play it? Also, think about your improvement cards when you're deciding whether to semi-bluff or take the price, take the pot odds, and think about when you're sizing your semi-bluffs or bluffs in general, do I want to leave the weak parts of my opponent's range in, or do I want to fold them out? And I think this hand showcased all of those things. Overall, I think you are playing a very solid game, and this is kind of nitpicky high-level stuff. But yeah, I saw a lot of room for improvement on this hand. I thought you could have done something different on the flop, which is maybe debatable. I like a raise on the flop. I see where you're going with taking the price. It's fine. You're in position. Nothing wrong with it. On the turn, if you're going to raise, I think you really need to make a big raise. I mean, really, take the price or don't. Like, take the price or blow him off of as much as you can. And now, as played, his story doesn't make sense. He very, very, very rarely has a value hand. Like, he may, I mean, who knows? Maybe the dude's even capable of, like, bet folding a weak 10. I mean, your line is going to look super strong. You're going to be incredibly repping hands like ace 10 and sets that are now full houses and straights. You've got a ton of value hands in your range. And just that, I mean, he just doesn't or shouldn't. So yeah, and if you just run into it once in a while here, it's no big deal, and don't beat yourself up over it, and don't think it was the wrong play. It should work out plenty to be profitable, and all of the times that it took him to bleed off money to people to get into this spot, I mean, if players are going to play like this against you and actually have a 10 here, you're going to make enough money to more than make up for this raise being a mistake once in a great while when he just happens to have a 10 and played it like a moron. Okay, so hopefully that's enough said about that hand. Thought it was interesting. So you tank, understandably, but I would really like you to have thought it out just a little bit better and went with your read. Go with your read. Where are we at? Yeah, okay, so this, I mean, I don't know. I guess we can bet here, but if we bet, we have to understand we're bluffing. We're not protecting our hand. I heard you refer to that. Don't even think about that. We bet to fold out our opponent's equity, especially it's good to bet when we can fold out his equity when he's got more equity than us. And we bet to put more money in a pot that we're likely to win. And that's just that. That's why we bet. So essentially, you bet to fold out his equity. It's kind of like you're bluffing, right? And I think that can be fine. I probably let me pause this. Um, Going back to the 6-6-4 and you flop the pair fours. I think actually I prefer checking, and I mean, if we get blown off the hand, it's not the end of the world. We don't have a huge hand. I mean, it's like I think players get really wrapped up on this concept of, well, I have the best hand, so I really deserve this pot, and I can't give myself a chance to lose this pot. Well, I mean, and you could even say, I mean, my opponent might have like 25% equity against me. I got to protect my hand. It's like, man, if your opponent has like 25% equity against you with a random two-card hand, you don't have a big hand, you know. He's either going to have you badly beat, or you're not going to be in tremendously good shape. So, you know, I mean, that's not necessarily saying that you should check and call, but what it is saying is, if you get blown off the hand, it's not a big loss. You're not getting blown off of that big a hand. So I would check that flop and just try to get my hand to showdown. If I think I'm playing against an aggressive opponent, then I'm actually checking, trying to induce a bluff. If I think I'm playing against a passive player, I'm checking, hoping that it'll just check down, and I'm probably going to call one time. Because any guy's going to bluff some of the time, and he may even like try to like do some weird value bet with an ace high, or you know, bluff you off of a chop with his ace highs, depending on the runouts. But yeah, most of the time against this player, I'm probably going to check and call once, and then just give up unless I happen to improve. And if I improve, I've got a nice, well-disguised hand, and we can, you know, play it a little bit differently. This is going so much longer than I thought it was going to be. So I'm gonna probably have a ton of material for doing some coaching out of the sample that you sent me. I've already set my notebook down. I didn't take notes on any of that stuff. I haven't even discussed the notes that I did take. So don't remember where we're even at. Notebooks to the side. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, nice call. Now we want to check and call for sure. Okay, pause. I remember this hand. Okay, so we're going to check and we're going to call here. And he bet 20 and we've got top pair. Fine. That can be okay. But we really would have preferred more money than that went into the pot, right? Okay, so what are we going to do? What is he doing this? Is he doing this with an ace? I doubt it. I mean, I really do doubt it. I think most of the time he's doing this with like some kind of 2 or some kind of king, or I mean air. He's doing this because he's either betting for thin value, or he's betting hoping to get a free look at the river when you check to him again on the turn. This is a bad play that he's making, and we cannot let it succeed. But people don't talk about this. How do we not let it succeed? I look at it very similar to if I'm out of position and my opponent, and this guy that you're playing right now, this microphone dude, or microphone, he does this. He makes blocking bets out of position. We've already seen it. And he makes these kind of like weird proby, showdowny, like weak bets in position. And what I do, and I think you should do against players like this, is we have to combat this, right? Let's see the rest of the hand play out, and then I'll explain kind of my thoughts. Okay, so the as played, we check. That's fine. He bets 40 into 160. Okay, hold on. Bets 40 into 160. What's he doing here? We already called him on the flop. So if he has an ace, he's betting 40 into 160. I don't believe him. I don't believe him. So, but we check and we call. Okay, so as played, the 4 comes out. Now what are we going to do? Okay, if we check, which would be standard, right? If we're going to check, call, check, decide with this hand, right? And probably make a call or a fold based on his river sizing, you know, and our read of him and what we think of his play, that sort of thing. But most of the time, I'm going to check, call, check, call on this board, you know, with this exact run out against this against an average player, against normal bet sizes, against a normal player who's not doing super imbalanced, weird, exploitative things or exploitable things. And the problem is we're letting them work. So he's controlling the size of the pot. If he has a king in his hand and you check this river and he checks back, he did an outstanding job, right? Like he would have got a call from your 2. If you had like some kind of draw, he would have got value from your draws on the flop and on the turn. And you never gave yourself a chance to win the pot with the draws that are in your range. And with the 2s, you let him get value with his king. And when you have an ace and he has a king, he loses the just absolute minimum. He loses less than had he checked it back and you made, a decent sized turn bet, and then he gets to go to showdown. He just check this back and take it straight to showdown, and I should say he will then have gotten to showdown as inexpensively as possible and probably as effectively as possible. Now he's in position, so that's not that awful, and it's not that unusual that a guy's going to lose less when he's beat when he's in position, and we're going to win less when we're out of position. But knowing that this guy is fishy, and I do think that you at this point really are starting to figure out that this guy's a fish, right? So he's not going to exploit you. He's not going to be quick to adjust. He's not going to know what you're doing. He's not going to be thinking as high a level as he would have to be thinking to exploit the suggestions I'm going to make. So since we don't want him to control the size of the pot, we don't want to let him check back. He's in position. He does get to control the size of the pot to some degree. But when he's making these tiny bets, if he's doing that, we need to, on this river, we need to take, if it as played, so with our range, which is really going to be what are we doing this with? Basically aces, kings. We probably fold the turn with a 2, but we don't have 2s in our range. We have aces, we have king X, and we've got draws. I think that's the bulk of our range. And if that's the bulk of our range, and we think that he has some kind of like mediocre hand, what should we be doing on the river with our range against his range? We want to bluff with our busted draws, right? And we want to get value from our top pairs. So I think we should make a pot size bet on the river as played. And that really is just going to be exactly what he does not want to see with the bulk of his range. And I think we should do that with draws that missed. I think we should do that if we bink a draw here. And I also think we should do that with 2 pairs if we have like ace-4. And I think that we should do that with the hand that we have. So we should be making this river lead as played. It's not standard to check call, donk the river, right? But he's not going to be able to do anything about that. So let's stop him from checking this king back and taking it to showdown, and let's get money in the pot, or not let him see a showdown. So he's either going to be calling our value hands too often, or he's going to be folding to our bluffs too often. But in this exact scenario, this exploitative play is going to be to extract value from what is likely a hand like ace-3 at best, and is probably no better than, it's at best ace-3. I think his range is pretty capped around ace-3, and I would say that the bulk of his range is going to be hands like pocket kings. Pairs of kings and pocket jacks, and he's going to have the occasional like weird 9 that he hit, I think. And let's not let him check that stuff back. Let's not let him do such a good job of minimizing his losses against our aces when he's got a king. And let's not let him just take this hand to showdown. Let's not give ourselves an opportunity to bluff him off of his hand when we have a draw that he gave us a good price. The other thing we could do instead of this is, instead of just making like check call lead river, which by the way I think is gonna look bluffy. I think we will get looked up by a king a good portion of the time. He's never folding like ace-3. So we're betting for value, and he's rarely folding the top of his range, right? Obviously. But anyway, if we want to kind of not take this exact line, another way we could play this hand is we could just check, call the flop, and make a check min raise on the turn. So once he makes that tiny bet on the turn, we really feel like he's capped his range. If we click it back, then he's going to call with his kings. He's probably going to call with his 9s because he's just getting too good of a price, right? But that also gives us the lead in the hand, and it builds a bigger pot where we can make a bet that's a little bit bigger for value and have a better chance of getting it paid off. And it gives us another option when we get to that exact spot and we have a hand like queen 10. We check, he makes this little min raise, or this little tiny bet. min raise it and plan to bet the hell out of rivers would be a good way to play. Um, with this exact hand and this exact situation, if I were playing it against this player, I would have check called the flop. I would have checked to see what he was doing with that bet sizing on the turn. When he makes a small bet on the turn, I would have just doubled his bet, and there'd be what, like 80 more chips in the pot now, and I would just go for another 200 right here, and I think that I would get it called, fairly often. But as played, I think just check call, pot the river. I wanted to do more. I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna finish this, but we're getting way too long for YouTube, and I want to put this on YouTube. So until next time, okay, I'm gonna pause, leave this paused. Well, let's see what you do. I don't really remember. You check. He bets 80, and what are we gonna do now? See, now I think we could even click it back. I mean, it looks like we're totally handcuffed, but if we just click it back, I mean, I think we're winning like almost always, and I think he's usually got something. Not always. He's got a busted draw, which it isn't going to hurt us to bet against. We're not going to lose anything. Or he's got like a king, and like maybe like a king queen that he's not going to fold if we click it back. So I think that we click it back here. I mean, it's not the normal, it's not the standard play. It's a bit unusual, it's unorthodox, but I think it's something that you can do to improve your game, that's kind of outside the box. And if you kind of follow that thinking, maybe you can kind of put some of your own unique strategies together, and do some of that kind of like more mindful thinking when you're playing. Your standard, your straight up just normal game, it's solid. There's not a ton of leaks that we need to plug, but we need to look at just really adjusting properly, exploiting the hell out of these guys, and also what kind of things we need to do to get you prepared to move up stakes if you're eventually going to want to play pro. So okay, so we check, he bets, and I would click it back. You call, and he's got the busted draw, no big deal. But look, man, like we gave him a great price to try to get there, and we didn't get value. Like we let him set his price the whole time. That's what he was doing. He bet small on the flop, so that we would check to him on the turn. I don't know why he didn't take the free card. That was silly. But once he made that little mistake, clicking it back, he definitely would have called us. So we certainly would have got more money out of him had we, had we played it that way, or more value. Because actually, the way that hand played out exactly, that's the one part of his range that you probably did about as well as you were going to. Well, no, you could have like check raised the flop and bet the turn, which would have made sense, and he would have paid you off. But yeah, hopefully, don't worry about what I just said. That was kind of murky and clumsy, but I gotta cut this off. This is getting super long. No one else is gonna watch it. So until next time, all Navanad. Good luck. Over and out.